Nick Wright in 10 minutes. Rick Bucher today. Mike Missanelli in Philadelphia. Big radio host there. We'll probably argue back and forth. Philadelphia should apologize to me today, Joey, don't you think? It's been very mean-spirited to me last week. It was very hurtful.
Well, you know, you said some pretty extreme things at the time. Now,
Trade Embiid.
Now considering and knowing the reactionary nature of the Philadelphia fan base.
Yeah.
They may agree with you today, but who knows? Maybe there's some change.
Even Barkley and Shaq agree with me last night. But Nick Wright's coming up in 10 minutes. So I saw this story. I talk about this a lot in sports. There's the story, and then there's the story behind the story. And I'm often manipulated. When I lived out in the northeast part of the country, in Connecticut near New York, I would listen to New York radio, and clearly teams would float rumors to radio hosts. Radio hosts would talk about it, and the general managers, the owners, and the presidents would listen to the reaction of fans. Stuff gets floated in the NFL draft. Don't kid yourself. Teams they're curious about what their fan bases think and what they'll have to deal with, the blowback or the positives. So stuff is leaked all the time. So this story came out. Klay Thompson unhappy with his role in the Warriors, according to Stephen A. Smith. Listen, I always hear Klay Thompson has no ego. Of course he does. He's got an ego. They all have an ego. Kawhi Leonard's got no ego. Do you see that whizzing match with Greg Popovich? You don't think that was pride and ego and vanity? They've all got egos. You can't make the NBA. You can't be a partner in a law firm if you don't have some sense of great pride, confidence to overcome obstacles and blowback and pushback and all the barriers to being great at anything. Everybody's got an ego. Some just have enormous, unmanageable egos. Some just have smaller, easier to manage egos. But I'll tell you, I would pay for Klay Thompson. I'd pay him max. He's a shooter. That means he's going to age well. He's always healthy. He's low maintenance mostly. He plays both ends of the floor, and he's been a Warrior since day one. I think he's a max player? No, I think KD's a max player. LeBron's a max player. But in today's world, you're going to have to pay max for occasional guys like Klay Thompson who are B+ to A-, but they're hella valuable. And he's a good dude, and he's always healthy, and he's really low maintenance, and he plays both ends, and I like him a lot. Like his dad, know his dad. He's a good kid. But I will tell you what this feels like to me, the Russell Wilson story, is that Klay Thompson don't want to go anywhere. He don't want to go to a bad team and be the star. He wants to get paid. And so you kind of push that story out there, and all of a sudden Warriors are like, oh, boy, we got to pay him. He just wants to make it, no, I want a little sugar over here. I want a little lettuce. Don't forget about me, even though you got KD and the staff and Harden. Well, I'm over here, one of the best shooters in the world. This is like the Russell Wilson story. How in the world did I have a source down in Los Angeles in the entertainment business who just happened to tell me, Russell Wilson, New York Giants interested? And then after you push back on that, about a week later, 2 weeks later, a bunch of people had that story. Why? Russell wanted to get paid. Now, I'm not saying Russell and his wife weren't interested potentially in a bigger city like a New York, but stuff leaks for a reason. You know, I mean, I always said this. I don't believe in conspiracy theories because stories, nobody can keep a secret. Like, the JFK story. Like, we'd have the leak. You think that thing would be hidden for 55 years? Somebody would talk. Somebody always talks. And so this feels like Klay wants to get a little love, a little lettuce, a little sugar, wants to get paid a little bit. Just don't forget about him. His complaint is, according to this story, that he averaged 22 points a game during the regular season and about 16 during the postseason. And that is true. We're seeing this all over the playoffs. Have you noticed this about the playoffs? The stars are dominating. I mean, Joker was always good. He's dominating. Damian Lillard's an all-star. He's dominating. Kawhi was good. He's stupendous. Harden, are you noticing kind of what happens in the playoffs? The stars become even more valuable. And the B+ guys get pushed down just a little bit. But Klay will get his. I'd pay him. It's all good. Here's Joy with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
So the Nuggets are one win away from their first Western Conference Finals in 10 years after last night's 124-98 win over Portland.
Felt like first minute of the game. They just kind of had the mojo.
It was domination.
Yeah. Damian
Lillard did what he could for the Blazers, finished with 22, 6, and 4, but Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Millsap were too much for the Blazers. And after the game, Lillard said he was still waiting for his team to play its best game.
We don't feel like we played our best basketball yet, and with our backs against the wall, we don't really have a choice. So our mindset is just to get the next one, take care of home, and make it back here. I think they played as good as they could play, and we probably played as worse a game that we could play. Whether you lose by 1 or you lose by 25, it's one game. And, we're going back home to try to force a Game 7 and just make it back here.
What really sticks out to me during this series, we all knew Kawhi was really, really special. I mean, he won a Finals MVP. He's played better than even Kawhi plays. Giannis was an MVP candidate. The one guy in this playoff who I think America's now, myself included, seeing on a nightly basis and going, holy crap, is Jokic. He is the best passing big man since Sabonis. They run their offense through him. He is an unbelievable player. I'm not sure this is a playoff team without him. The Raptors were 17-5 without Kawhi this year. He is dominating the series.
He has definitely had a complete and utter presence on the court. The one thing about him that I think that the Blazers could use to their advantage is he's a slower player.
Right.
So if they could play fast-paced, I think they would neutralize him a little bit more. But you've got to get the shooting. CJ McCollum, 5 of 16 and had 12 points. It's not going to work. That doesn't. There's not enough scoring from the Blazers. Now, the Blazers stars didn't even play in the fourth quarter, so
they're rested going home.
Right. He is right about overreacting to this loss. It is a really bad loss, but as bad as I feel about the Sixers loss, I don't feel that way about the Blazers loss.
Well, remember this. If you go back, some of the Warriors' losses in the playoffs through the years have been just 30-point losses. You can, generally in this sport, in the playoffs, it's much tougher to overcome an overtime loss than a blowout. You can put the blowout behind you by the time you get on the plane.
Right, an emotional loss or a loss that came down to a call.
Remember the Cavs in the finals last year?
Right.
Game 1, series was over.
Right. Absolutely. So something like that I feel like is more impactful than just a blowout loss. You just put this behind you and win the next game. I still think this goes 7. So for the 2019-2020 Knicks, everything is on the table, especially if they sign Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. But if they also win the lottery and draft Zion Williamson with the number 1 overall pick, could trading him help them contend immediately?
I would not trade him in New York. Oh, Joy, I would not trade him.
Well, this is a conversation people are having about if you keep Zion, because if you do have Kyrie and Kevin Durant, are you in a situation, say, like Cleveland's, where they had Andrew Wiggins and they traded him for Kevin Love to try and contend immediately? I feel like if they get the number 1 overall pick, I'm with you. You got to pick Zion. The enormous just energy and
in
following
New York
around Zion is too much. That you have to risk it. Who knows what he's going to become, but you've got to risk it with Zion. Now, if they get the 2nd overall pick and they have Kyrie and Kevin Durant coming,
then it's different.
I think that they do trade. You take John Morant. I do think you trade him and get a piece that complements it better, because Kyrie and John Morant kind of cancel each other out. And John Morant is a young player, so you don't know what you're going to get from him.
So you'd have KD, Kyrie, Kevin Knox, and then you trade the 2 pick, and you probably get an all-star and a pick.
Right.
And then you can take that pick and get another player. KD and Kyrie by themselves in a lottery pick are not winning a championship, and KD and Kyrie aren't going there to make the playoffs.
No.
They want to be special.
They're going there to win a championship. That is a championship team you're putting together. So I don't think if you get Zion that you trade the pick, but if you don't get the number 1 overall pick, there are some moves you could make there if you're getting Kevin Durant and Kyrie. Finally, the Cowboys front office might not get much of a break this offseason. According to the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, negotiations with Amari Cooper got off to a slow start because his demands were deemed shockingly high by the team. And as for Dak, it sounds like the Cowboys are expected to give him at least $30 million per year. Jerry Jones had this to say on the Rich Eisen Show.
I think that we're sold on Dak, and we do want to have him for the long term. We think he's worthy of investing in for the long term. He's going into his 4th year now in the NFL. When you look at the snaps he's had, when you look at the situations he's been in, when you look at, first of all, how he got here, and then you see really how he has performed, we see real upside in Dak.
If that happens, he will join an exclusive club of quarterbacks at the $30 million a year mark, which includes Russell Wilson, Roethlisberger, Rodgers, and Ryan.
That's a lot of money for Dak.
It is, but what's the argument against it? What arguments do you have against it?
You're not going to. The 6 teams with the highest paid quarterbacks didn't make the playoffs last. The argument against it is Brady's contract. Tim Duncan's contract.
Dak is not married to a woman that is worth $400 million.
This is bad.
And Dak's been on a 4th-round rookie contract for 4 years.
I get it.
And they haven't put the pieces around him with that flexibility.
Yeah, no, listen, his agent's got great arguments. They're going to have to pay him.
They have no choice. This is the market. But the Amari Cooper thing is interesting because they were expected to give him $16 million, and he is demanding a lot more than
even
that.
That for Amari like him, that's a lot. I don't want to have now $46 million in 2 guys.
Yeah, they're going to have to work that out.
Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line
Last week was one of my favorite spots ever with Nick Wright. He had to acknowledge I was right on Westbrook. If you didn't see it, it was a glorious segment. It was some of the best TV I've ever seen, and that includes Gunsmoke and American Idol. This week, it's not so great for me. Let's go to the Coward Global Satellite Network. I'm going to have to acknowledge the Celtic thing is not going to work with Kyrie. Milwaukee's really good. Hi, Nick. We can brush past that quickly. Go ahead.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, whatever.